How many times have you asked yourself, I would like to taste this whiskey, maybe a little bit higher ABV, maybe non-chill filtered, maybe cask strength, how about natural color, non-chill filtered, all of those ticking the boxes that so many YouTubers are talking about. And I've done that on numerous occasions, that I drink something that's maybe 43% or 40%, and I'm thinking, you know what, a little bit of higher ABV would absolutely be fantastic. And of course, the more whiskey you drink, when you go into your whiskey journey, then of course we always want something a little bit more special, a little bit more higher ABV, and we start our search for that perfect whiskey. And all of a sudden we become this whiskey purist, with a whiskey snob. We become that fussy drinker. We are looking for that better quality and not the quantity of the whiskey, and not the cheapest whiskey. So we delve into all kinds of offerings, and we end up, of course, with the independent bottlers. And that person that takes a ordinary whiskey, and they try to make something that's special, and sometimes they also make something better. So we keep on searching for that extra in that bottle, or something that's got a little bit more oomph. And you know, when you look at the cooking channels and they teach you how to do something, or they make a pasta sauce or a marinara sauce, and they tell you you need to add a little bit of red wine or white wine, the first thing that they tell you, if you don't want to drink it, then don't put it in your food. So quality, I think, is the basis of a good independent bottler. Start off with something special, and then you will only get something that should be much better than the original. And I think that is the basis for many of the independent bottlers. They start off by buying the whiskey from a reputable company, and of course that makes it a little bit easier to make something special. And that brings me to tonight's whiskey, Craigallachie. Now, that's something that I like, well, more than like, love it. I started off with the 13-year-old. I think that is really a nice, easy sipping whiskey. I did a review on the 17-year-old, really special for me, a little bit expensive though. So the 13 and the 17, loved it. Then I thought to myself, can you take something that's younger? And in this case, we are talking a 7-year-old Craigallachie from the independent bottler Duncan Taylor. It is from the Octave range. It's bottled at 52.1% ABV, natural color, non-chill filtered. So they're ticking the boxes, and they're kicking us in the teeth with that high 51.2% ABV. It is a single cask, and the cost around €55 here in Belgium. So this is a Speyside single malt. It was distilled in Craigallachie distillery in 2008, bottled in 2015. And with a little bit of digging, I found out that there was only 115 bottles. And of course, the Octave range, what they are talking about, is about the cask size. So they mature it for maybe 6.5, 7 years, just less than 7 years. They will remove it from the normal oak cask. They don't tell us which specific cask they used. Was it sherry cask or ex-bourbon cask? And when they transfer it to an Octave cask, which is about 45 to 50 liters in capacity. So small cask, more faster maturity, a little bit more wood influence, more alcohol to wood contact, so we expect a little bit more color, and of course we expect a little bit more flavor coming out of that new cask. So I was lucky enough to get a sample of this one. It's already dark, cold here in Belgium, so sorry about the lighting. I did try to put on as much of the lights as possible, so hopefully you can see the color. It's a nice little golden copper color, a little bit of a oiliness to it, a little bit of a viscosity to it. But then of course, not going to make a long video. We need to do the nosing and tasting of this independent bottler. Just a little bit on the Octave collection. They do cater what they say on their website for every taste, be it a single malt or a grain whiskey or a blended whiskey. And they get the whiskies from quite a number of distilleries: Bunnahabhain, Altmore, Brackla, Craigallachie, Craigallachie, of course, Glenmoray, Highland Park, Milton Dove, and Tobermory Distillery. So they do have a wide range of distilleries where they get their whiskies from. So onto the nose. Cheers. Now, I did try to find out what type of cask that they use, and of course I was not really successful in it, so I'm going to have to follow the nose and see what do I pick up. And the first thing that I do pick up is this lovely sweetness coming out. Definitely a little bit of a sherry influence, and it reminds me so much of that ex-Pedro Ximénez sherry casks. Again, with a normal Pedro Ximénez sherry cask, I always get a little bit of a funky note, especially if you just poured it. There's a little bit of a air that comes out of an old tire, a little bit of a rubbery note, a little bit of that funky note that comes out. But I know by now, just give it a little bit of time in the glass and it will all disappear, and you will be left with a lovely sweetness of that sherry. It can also, and I've seen that also in an ex-red wine cask, so it can also maybe be a little bit of a red wine cask. That's what I pick up. Maybe somebody knows exactly what type of cask that they use. Leave it in the comment. Help me out here. Very difficult to find some information nowadays. But really lovely sweet. A little bit of a vanilla note coming out. On the alcohol, there's 52.1% ABV. Not really getting that high ABV. Maybe a 46% ABV. Even with a little bit of a agitation, if you do twirl it around in the glass, it covers the sides, and when you give it a nose, it does become a little bit stronger, but it's still well balanced. And it's not something that you will pull away. And it does not smell like a 7-year-old. It smells way more mature, maybe even going into the 12, 15-year-old whiskies. So quite pleasant, soft, sweet, a little bit of a chocolate note, a little bit of a caramel note coming out, a little bit raisins, even a little bit of a dates that come out, a little bit of a cocoa powder, but just a hint of it. Maybe that's all quite close to that chocolate, not a dark chocolate. There's a little bit of a woody note, a little bit of a malt, dark honey note, a little bit of a toffee note as well. So quite nice and pleasant on the nose. And of course we need to taste it as well. Cheers. Really nice. very sweet. Again, it reminds me of that sherry influence, Pedro Jimenez cask, very, very sweet, toffee notes, a little bit of that dark chocolate still coming out. Raisins definitely on the taste as well. It reminds me also of the trail mix, with all the dried fruit, a little bit of a couple of nuts in it, a little bits of chocolate in it. Quite pleasant on the taste as well. And of course, quite a high ABV. And to be honest, for me, this is perfect. I'm definitely not recommending to add water to it. But of course, it's all up to you. If you want to bring it down a little bit, maybe it's a little bit too strong for you, a couple of drops at a time until you find the right level. Oh, and every time that I do go back, it just becomes a little bit more sweeter. That little funky note has now completely disappeared. So quite an interesting one. Now, if I think back on the 13-year-old Craigallachie, the 17-year-old, do they succeed in taking a 7-year-old and making it really nice? I think they completely succeeded. This is beyond my expectation. Price-wise, €55, 7 years old. It is a little bit steep, I give you that. But if I think about the high ABV, I think about all the boxes that was ticked. I think about the pleasure that this one will give me. Love the 13, love the 17, but the 17 is much more expensive than this one. So in the end, if you go through all the motions, especially the nose and the taste, I'm going to make sure, really, really nice, dangerous one. And of course, if you decide to add a little bit of water to this one, that bottle is going to be another maybe 200 or 300 milliliters more. So you're getting quite a big bang for your buck on this whiskey. So Duncan Taylor, I think you did an excellent job on taking a good whiskey already, matured it in your style, adding that whiskey to a small 45-liter barrel, and you created something that's really nice. So well done. What do you think? Who has tried it? I really appreciate all the people giving me their comments, giving feedback, and giving me advice on which other whiskies I should try. I always try to answer all your questions. I try to respond to everybody. I really appreciate it. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this one? Which independent bottler should I try next? Have a look at my list of videos. I've tried a couple of them, and I do have one or two special ones that's still to be opened in the future. So thank you very much for watching. As always, please remember to like and subscribe. And of course, I have a Patreon account. If you are interested in sending some money for children in South Africa, we are currently looking after 75 children, 85 families. So every cent that goes to the Patreon account, every cent that goes, or every cent that I get from the AdSense revenue will go towards the children in South Africa. So thank you very much, and I see you next time. Cheers.